All right, gang, let's go ahead and get started. We are 7:30, and hopefully everyone who is trying to join us is in the process of getting in, if not already here. But thank you very much. Thanks for rolling with the change in venue. Hopefully, you will enjoy this a lot better, getting to actually see us and hear us. To me, it makes for a little bit better meeting experience. Hopefully, you do the same. Just to kind of walk you around a little bit of how Zoom works if you're not familiar, which, in this year, probably everybody's familiar, but feel free to use the chat rather than speaking. We are monitoring the chat. If you have something that comes up and you want to add your 2 cents worth, you can also unmute yourself at any time and ask a question or talk or whatever it is you feel moved to do. You can also react with telling me to speed up, which might be useful. In the participants tab, there's a little go faster thing, sort of like wrap it up kind of stuff. So feel free to use that if I start getting long winded. And you can also use yes and no, thumbs up, thumbs down, that sort of stuff. All right. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Just a little quick rundown right now with league stats. We've got 54 registered teams with 312 licensed coaches and a total of 634 licensed riders. That is almost a 2 rider to 1 coach ratio, which is incredibly awesome. Something that we couldn't have achieved in, I guess, a normal year. So this is pretty great. I know on my team, it seems like we're about 2 coaches for every 1 student athlete, which can be a little bit difficult sometimes. So, thanks for everything that you guys are doing to get riders involved, and thanks for all the time that you're spending with getting your coaches involved as well. We're going to get started tonight right off the bat with something that we talked about on the podcast, but didn't actually talk to him. And that is we're being joined tonight by Steve Matous, who is the president of NICA. And he is here kind of in lieu of being able to travel around and go to leadership summits, since those are not really physically happening. And he just wanted to be available for questions and feedback. So, Steve, I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, as much as anything, I want to listen today. I want to be here to see what you're all up to and get engaged closer with your league. You are one of the leagues that I have not had an opportunity to visit yet. I've been to 19 of our 29 leagues, so I'm getting there, but I still have 10 to go. And I am one of the lucky ones. I have had my vaccine. I literally just had my second shot today. So I look forward to getting out on the road soon and getting out and visiting with you and everyone as I have the opportunity. But mostly, I just wanted to let you know that we are very pleased with the work that we're seeing getting done under the pandemic. We've seen an increase in student athletes across the board throughout the US. I think there was only 1 or 2 leagues where we saw a significant reduction. There were some leagues that did have reductions, but again, to be honest, the overall increase across the board, as well in coaches, same thing you're seeing. We saw a lot of coaches sign up even under the pandemic in 2020. And I know just from the little bit of travel I was able to do last fall, I got out to 5 different leagues, talking with the volunteers, with your coaches and yourselves. People indicated very strongly how important this was for them. They're here for the children. They're here to be a mentor, to be a leader on their team, but they really emphasized to me how important it was for each of them as individuals as well to be part of what your league is up to, what NICA as a national organization is up to. And I just want to say thank you, because I know that without all of you, nothing happens. You're the ones that are working with the kids. You're the ones that are out there twice a week. You're the ones that making it all happen. So just a big thanks and chapeau to all of you. And with that, Sean, I really will just listen and answer questions when you're ready and direct me how you want to go.
Right on. So let's if you feel like you have a question or some feedback for Steve, if you want to go ahead and unmute, it's a open floor at this point. Also, if you want to just join into the chat, you can do that as well, and we will facilitate communicating that with Steve to get his response.
Maybe just something to prompt people, because I know we've had a few hiccups in the last few weeks. I don't know how many of you actually received the malicious, as I call it, email that was sent out across the U.S. and it was targeted at coaches and teams, and I just found it very unfortunate because it tried to stir up a lot of concern and issues over things that weren't necessarily problems. It's unfortunate that Colorado and Georgia left. It's very unfortunate that they felt the need to separate themselves from NICA. But to be honest, those are decisions that they made. They have good reasons for it. While we're disappointed in it, we in no way feel antagonistic towards them. As a matter of fact, I just had an email exchange with Kenny in Georgia today because 3 of the national award winners from 2020, and this stuff was just announced this afternoon, should have gotten out on the social media and website and everything right now. 3 of those individuals, one was a coach and 2 student athletes, came from the Georgia League. So I just want to be clear, whatever you're hearing out there, I'm certainly happy to try and address, but from where I sit, apart from the fact that I felt it was very unfortunate, and I think there are ways that we could have continued to work together, that was their decision. But I was very much disappointed. I know that I addressed all of you in an email because I sent it to every coach, all 13,000 people that are registered, my disappointment in that malicious email. But if there are other things on the positive end as well, please let's talk about those because there is a lot of great things happening. Kate Courtney Sparkle On sponsorship, scholarship for graduating seniors, $10,000. Think about that. So long as you're going to be going to college and you still want to race your bike, it's open to you to apply. Many other things like that happening. So, Sean, see if that opens up any thoughts from anyone.
That's great. That's much better than my usual go-to, which is the French Revolution was neither French nor a revolution discuss. So, uh, going along with those kind of program things, I guess the thing that I would kind of be interested to hear would be how has in this pandemic year where racing has not necessarily been something that has been going on with a lot of leagues, how have you seen at your end where more, I guess, programmatically the adventure program is becoming more fleshed out, or maybe something akin to what we see with the racing program, where it's almost as well developed or moving in that direction. So, do you see a future where there's sort of this 3 main programs and racing is one of them equal to the others, or will racing still be sort of the main raison d'etre for NICA?
Well, let's start with and I see there are people putting things in chat, so we'll get to that when you're ready, Sean. But racing is what I like to refer to as the venue. It is the way we reach our kids. It is the reason for our team practices. It's how NICA started. I don't ever see us stepping away from that. And it is the one program that we do require when a new league starts up. They have to put on weekend race events. Adventure, Teen Trail Corps, some of the other things that we're doing, we're not saying that you have to do them, but we do have enough demand from leagues around the country that we're supporting them heavily. We've been able to raise some dollars specifically for the adventure program to support Melissa Davies in a full-time position to help all the leagues flush out those programs and introduce them and continue supporting them. So yes, absolutely, we would continue with those programs. And those, interestingly enough, my understanding, because this all was in existence before I was hired, as I recall, in June 2019, when I first came on board and I was at the Idaho conference, is where the adventure program was first introduced to everyone. So it's something that we're going to continue to support because we view ourselves as a youth development organization. We happen to race. Some of us do it very well. Some of us don't care one way or the other. It's all good. The main emphasis these days is that we want to make sure every kid participates and has an opportunity to participate. And sometimes that's not available to folks if you only race. So that's one of the reasons we want to make sure that we have a lot of other programmatic issues that they can join. But again, I just want to be clear that we are not mandating that you must do those. But what we have found, especially under the pandemic, is that they've been lifesavers for many of the leagues. They've given them an opportunity to engage and address. And I'd be curious to hear from your coaches if they feel this is true. But what I've heard from other leagues is it's given them an opportunity to engage and address their student athletes when there was no weekend race event.
All right. And I see there's a couple of things. So Nikki Malatin, she was asking about the malicious email. She was unaware of this, and so not to dwell too much about that, but it was kind of a spam email that was generated as a kind of stirring the pot whenever Colorado and Georgia announced that they were leaving NICA to form their own independent leagues. Is that correct in kind of a good synopsis of that situation?
Yeah, that's correct. And the thing that was unfortunate, my phone and my email was just going crazy when that happened. And a lot of the complaints were, how'd they get my email? This was sent to my personal email. How did they get this? So our immediate concern was that we had been hacked and that our database was breached, and security issues, of course, concerns were first and foremost. Working with some outside consultants as well as software engineers and people internally, as far as we've been able to determine, there was no data breach. But it looks like what they did was they, and I may use the incorrect terms, Mike Long or others that know better can tell me, they skimmed a bunch of the materials off of websites. And they also somehow did have access to some team directors and some coaches. So while it was prevalent throughout the US, it does not appear that it went to all 13,000 coaches at this point, although it's really hard to tell. Because again, I got dozens of emails and phone calls complaining about this. But basically, Sean, you hit it right on target. It was not an attempt to ask a question. It was an attempt to stir the pot and really poke the bear. And I can tell you that in the responses that I got after I sent out my email to all the coaches, that the majority, 95% of them back to me, were very positive and saying, thank you for doing this. We were equally upset by this as you. There were one or two that had specific questions about the departure of Colorado and Georgia. And I gladly answered them because they gave me their phone number, they gave me their name, they gave me a way to communicate with them. Whereas this spammed email, who knows who it was? We have no idea.
Yeah, Steve, my suspicion is they probably went to league websites where they have team maps, where we put contact information for how to find the team, and my guess is they harvested that. So I've been looking at that and our calendar and thinking, is there a it's a challenge, right? Because I don't want to be putting any of y'all's personal information out there where you can get garbage, but you also want to make it easy for people to find the team. So I've been looking at that from our league standpoints. Is there a better way of doing this so that people can get a hold of you and ask legitimate questions, but not send you emails that you don't want? Because my inbox is a nightmare. I don't want to make yours one either.
Yeah, I actually closed all of my email tabs at the top so that nobody would make fun of me for my, little number in parentheses that shows how many unread emails I have. So, right there with you. Adam has a comment about risk management when it's appropriate. And Adam, I would say right now is a perfectly appropriate time.
Okay, let me unmute. Thanks. And Steve, thanks for coming and talking to us. Appreciate it. So, um, and I wasn't planning to do this, but since you're here and you're saying, ask, talk to me, this is just something I've thought about for a while. It's not just sort of more of a thought, and I'm actually drinking a beer at the moment, so I'm even more low key than usual. But the one thing I've noticed, when we do the recertifications, obviously every year for our coaching staffs and everything, and going through the risk management, it seems to me, and I have done some of this in other organizations, that sometimes the risk management classes and training, which is, I think, it should be absolute highest priority, whether it's the safety or whether it's athlete abuse, prevention, that sort of thing. But it could be a little simpler and maybe, easier for people to boil down to the main goals we have with, doing all this training. And so my comment is, if you all, have time, can take a look at some of that, and, instead of having slides full of, 10,000 words that, we're we can have other materials where we can read 10,000 words, but we also should, maybe if we could focus on some big lessons that we need to just keep in mind when we're, thinking safety. So that's my only comment. But appreciate you being here, and thanks for taking the time.
No, and thank you for that, Adam. And actually, this has been on our minds for many months, and maybe Sean and Gerald will jump in too. But I have a question for you. Have you recently done any of the training on Litmus since March 1st, when we launched our new education and training programs?
No, I was.
Okay, wait till you do, and then please come back to me, steve@nationalmtb.org, after you get on and take a look at the current changes, because we've changed a lot and tried to address exactly what you're saying. After you do that, please reach out to me, reach out to John Caston, who helped us create the new training education programs. But I hear you loud and clear, and I'm hopeful that we've addressed at least some of that, if not all of it. But if we haven't, I want to hear that as well. So when all of you do get back in there, one of the things, as an example, we have changed some of the requirements from being done yearly to being done every other year. We've tried to be a lot more engaging with video as opposed to words. So again, take a look at it, see what you think. If we still can do more and can do better, let me know.
Just one point of clarification to add. The changes that Steve's talking about went into effect for the fall leagues, where spring leagues, so we won't see those until next season.
Okay.
Thanks for that, Michael. Yes, I forgot. Very good point.
No worries. I know it's hard to keep track. We got so many all over.
Yeah. But no, it's Adam raises an excellent point, and I fully agree with him. It's something that probably back even when Michael Eastwood was still with us, we were thinking about how to address it. So I'm happy to see it's finally getting done.
Yes, and that's been something on our coach supporter calls with National, that they had rolled this out. Unfortunately, it was after we were kind of getting our league up and running for the year, so we kind of missed out on it for this season. But next season, I'm anticipating that we'll see a pretty marked difference between what we've been going through and what we're going to see from this point forward. All right. Other feedback or questions for Steve?
Hey, Sean, Mike Murphy. Can you hear me,
Mike
Sean?
Murphy, go.
Steve, Mike Murphy, how you doing? Pisgah Rage. Question is a very, very different topic. It's about national, regional, local awareness at the school level of NICA. Michael and Mike have given us great direction. We're in the, let's use the case study of our organization. We're a fairly large composite and migrating to school-based teams. But in that process, it's a little bit like swimming upstream. And we're doing the grassroots efforts of bringing awareness to the local school systems. And it all depends on the interest in the administration, how much outdoor enthusiasm they have. If there's administration that has tremendous outdoor enthusiasm, it's an easy walk in the door and moving the school-based team forward. If it's not, it's a very arduous process. So my question to you is, what's NICA doing on the national level to gain the national awareness and then the regional awareness if we're going to do the local awareness? So it's top down, bottom up.
You know, to be honest, I don't know that we're doing much at all, Michael. I know that I've had various conversations, and depending on which league director and which state you talk to, there's either incredible support for working with the National Federation of High School Sports or not at both a state and national level. And there are some people that are adamantly opposed to us going down that road, and there's some people that are really working hard. I can tell you as an example, Dennis Leffler in Southern Nevada last year, right before COVID, he had literally just broken into the Clark County School District, which serves over 1 million people. And that was going to be huge for the development of the Nevada League. And then COVID shut it all down. Yet at the same time, I won't name a name, but on the negative side, I have other league directors who said to me, absolutely not. There's absolutely no way we should be working with these federations, that it's just more problems for us, create havoc. And unfortunately, that really is the way in the door. It's very difficult for us as an organization to have schools accept us as a varsity sport instead of a club sport unless the state federation is on board. So I don't have a good answer for you right now, other than I get mixed messages depending on the state. And so probably the best thing would be for myself to work with Michael Eastwood and Mike Long and see if there's support that we can bring specifically to you here in North Carolina. I don't have a good answer for you, Michael. I apologize.
Well, in a way, it's a good problem. Thank you. It's a good problem because the demand is so high from the student participation, the parent participation level. There's the great opportunity. So this is a good problem at the end of the day. If we could get some help on the top down side, it would be very beneficial. Thank you.
So
And any thoughts, Michael, what that help would be? What are you looking for?
Ultimately, I'm looking for to be able to walk into a principal's office and says, yeah, we know about you. I've heard about you. We're starting from ground zero, and they're hearing about us through the traditional manner in which Michael Eastwood's doing a great job teaching us. But it would be great if there was awareness just coming from the top as well, where they heard about us at a convention, they heard about us through their district somehow, superintendent level, etc.
Okay, great. That helps. Thank you, Michael.
Hey, Steve Matous, this is Ben Harbor from the Wilco Wolves. To go on Mike's commentary there about how to get into your schools, we are a composite team as well. It's our second year in the season in the league. And our first initial season last year before COVID hit, I attempted to approach our school athletic director for the county. And it was pretty much shut door, don't come talk to me, anything. And I was looking for and asked Michael Long, Mike Eastwood, and Sean for information on how do you approach the athletic directors of a county school system and what information can we bring. And they've given us good advice, great things that we could try, but there was not a lot of detail, paper in hands that school systems are looking for to understand the program. Is there something that National could provide for us in those situations?
Similar question, Ben, to Michael. If you've got specifics, and you don't necessarily have to do it on this call, share those with Mike and Michael, and they can work with me, and we'll see. You know, it's interesting listening to you. This may be a variation of what I was referring to, as opposed to working with the state federations for sports. Perhaps really what I'm hearing here is that it's more of a question of being very clear as to who we are as a national organization, what that presence means for the schools, and why it's worth their while to open their doors to us. So that's slight variation on the federation thing, and this may be an easier nut to crack.
Yeah. And the second question I've got, and I hope we're not moving to a different topic, but I know last year in 2020, there was an email going out that went out from National about a partnership with BICP training to help enhance the coaches' abilities and training and knowledge. Can you explain some of what that was and what it is now and how our coaches can take advantage of it?
You know, I'm out of my depth on that one, Ben. I would actually defer to Sean and Michael Eastwood. If Amanda was on the call, I'd ask her. And Gerald, if you have any, I'm afraid I'm out of my depth on that one, Ben. But I will find an answer for you. And
yeah, I can chime in a little bit, but you might need more detail. When we were working with BICP, it was in partnership to try to work with leagues to set up courses. And I believe that there'd be a beneficial relationship between BICP and the leagues. And obviously, Ben, to your point, to the coaches to get, a little higher level training out in the field. But when I was there, it was kind of the beginning steps of that partnership. So I'm not sure, the progression since then. So, any follow-up from National would be appreciated. But, it's the training's obviously served Sean and myself, and obviously anyone else who's gotten it out there, and it's really impacted our ability to be able to work with the coaches across the league. So certainly would encourage, any furthering of your mountain bike skills trainings through clinics, through training such as that. I know BICP, as everything, was on pause for a long while with COVID and doing in person. They're starting back up. But it can be hard to get them out to the East Coast. So if we get enough interest, we can certainly work together, to say, hey, we've got 7-8 people who are interested in this. We can reach out to BICP and see what's going on. But as I mentioned, I think with the partnership through NICA, it might be a little bit easier. So we can certainly engage on that.
So I'll do the follow up with Amanda and the coach licensing staff, and I'll get that word back to Mike and Michael. Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right. I think, Adam, you have another question?
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to monopolize if there's someone else who's out there.
No
So,
problem.
Steve, again, you're here, so I'm going to ask you this, and probably like many areas of the country, in our area during the pandemic, we had some coaches with spare time and others with spare time in their hands, and we created like probably 20 new miles of trail, in the area, which is awesome for biking. And I suspect that happened in a lot of areas of the country. And I wonder, are you all thinking about, as we move out of the pandemic, what role NICA might have? And, we've always had, we've had the trail corps for, encouraging going out and maintaining the trail for the kids and stuff. But what role NICA might have in, advocating for keeping some of this, trail, some of this interest, newfound interest in using the outdoors? Are you all thinking about that as we go forward?
Yes, we are. As a matter of fact, I realize that IMBA may not always be in the best stead depending on which part of the country you're in, but we do have a memorandum of understanding with IMBA. We do work closely with them in a number of places. One of the things that we're specifically targeting with them is what they call trails closer to home. And specifically, one of the discussions we've been having is how do we bring mountain biking to the masses instead of bringing masses to mountain biking? And that refers to things like building pump tracks and short tracks on school grounds or in public parks. And we do have a couple of relationships that are separate from IMBA as well. One with the city of Lebanon in Indiana, where they're developing a 120-acre park specifically to meet the venue survey needs of the NICA League there, the Indiana League. And so there's a bunch of different ways that we're working at this. I think many of you know that Ken Seebeck also heads up the New Jersey Trail Association and Jorba. So there's a lot of different things happening, but at the national level, we tend to focus more on the strategic partnership and try and leverage that through IMBA and then any other national organizations. Locally, many leagues have good advocacy programs going on, and we'll support you in those any way we can. As an example, I went to Indiana last fall specifically to meet with the mayor and chief engineer of the city of Lebanon, just to encourage them and let them know that we were fully supportive of what they were up to. And while we're not a certifying body and we're not a trail building organization, we would certainly lend our gravitas and our resources to help make that happen, because ultimately it's going to benefit the league. And that's same for you here in North Carolina. I don't know the intricacies of the relationships with the trail building representatives and organizations in North Carolina, but certainly, again, working through Mike and Michael, let us know how we can help. Let us know what we can do, and we'll try and support you as best we can.
Thanks.
And Adam, I'll share some of what we're doing here, which is, part of Teen Trail Corps is not just maintaining trails, it's also advocacy and getting students involved in that public planning. So I would encourage you to work with your local, trail association and find out what projects they have that they want to have happen, that they're in the planning stages of, and see how the kids can get involved and become advocates for those. Because, a bunch of old white guys going and advocating for more mountain bike trail to a city council is not nearly as persuasive as having a bunch of really young kids all in matching jerseys going and speaking passionately about this thing that they find so important in their lives and that they want opportunities to do in their hometowns. And that's something that I really encourage you to help those student athletes find voice for being the future of mountain bike trail building and getting them to understand what the process is like. And it's something that I have to explain to adults all the time is that, getting a city to give you permission is the easy part. finding the money to do it and then actually getting it done, that's where all the heavy lifting is. And so getting those kids involved in that process will definitely help.
Sean, I see there's a question asking about Indiana specifically. Phil Widener on the national staff is heading up the relationship between us and them, as well as, of course, Margaret, the league director. But you can reach out to Phil, and then Nat Lopes, who has been hired by the city of Lebanon to actually do the trail design work. He, many years ago, was very active with the NorCal League, and then was part of, when Austin was still around, what was called the Youth Cycling, I'm going to forget now, it was association anyway, the YCA, which is now morphed into what's known as the Youth Cycling Coalition, which I think Michael and I have spoken about recently, because one of the states that's been identified, and one of the cities that's been identified for a pilot program is in North Carolina. Right now, the initial pilot is happening in West Virginia, but it's a group of including ourselves, of many, people like Little Bellas, USA Cycling, I'll forget half the organizations, BMX, et cetera, Project Bike Tech, they've all come together to try and promote youth cycling across the country. So Nat Lopes, and I'll forget the name of his business, and then get with Phil Widener specifically, and of course, Margaret at the Indiana, the league director, could help in terms of how they got connected with the city and where all that's going. But Phil Widener would be a good place to start.
Hey, Steve, Stephen Cole here. Can you talk a little bit about the email, I think, that came out a month or two ago about NICA and USA Cycling and some partnership or relationship going forward? Is there going to be more things going on between the two? And does NICA have anything to do with the high school festival that's going on at Nationals this summer?
Well, it's actually a sponsorship, and there will be some money coming the league's way, not a lot. Basically, we had a demand from, I believe it was 9 or 10 different leagues, but even though it wasn't the majority of the leagues, it actually represented about 55% of the student population, who said to me, they said, look, we've got kids that really want to be competitive and earn points, but often they end up on a weekend, when our league's having a weekend event, they have to decide, do they come to the NICA event or do they go chase points at a USAC sponsored race? And so we've come to an agreement with them where they're going to sponsor us, give us some money, and allow kids on teams to have free memberships, which they're now supplying to everyone across the country who's under 18, but for our kids up till age 19. And then we've already set up our pit zone system. I believe Michael and Mike, I can't remember if you were both on the call, but certainly you have access to the FAQs and information to help you coaches understand what it means further. But basically the leagues, when you do have weekend race events, kids who have USAC licenses, and it's not required. I mean, again, you don't have to participate if you don't want to, but if you have a student athlete that does want a USAC license, does want to chase those points for regional and national call-ups, you will now be able to earn points for a NICA race. I don't understand the full complexities of how USAC assigns their points. So that's, again, you have to ask somebody else that one. But that's the essence of the sponsorship of NICA. There is no intention at this point to do any more, because there is, as I think many of you that have been involved in racing for a long time, there's still, I hate to use the word mistrust, but I don't know what the right word is. There's still some ill feelings between seems like almost everyone in cycling and USA Cycling. I do believe that Rob DiMartini, their new CEO, has the best interest of youth cycling in mind. He does have a mandate to create Olympic athletes, though, so he's very much focused on racing. But at the same time, I do believe that there's a very strong benefit to making this available to kids that want to. The second part of your question, no, we're not involved in their mountain bike festival or their collegiate fair. They did the same thing in the past in 2019, but they didn't call it that. I think the main thing they've done now is they've changed their categories, their junior categories. And I don't totally understand this either, but they now have, instead of junior categories 17, 18, they have high school categories. It seems to me it's the same kids. So if you have an opportunity, Mike or Michael can share with you the FAQs that we've prepared And if the questions are more than I can answer, Amanda, again, on the national staff, has been the liaison with USAC. And I think many of you know she used to be a pro racer for Kenda, and I can't remember the other team she raced on. So she's pretty familiar with all this stuff and can help answer your questions if I haven't gotten to it.
No, that's good. Thank you. It's an odd situation, not having a lot of history with USAC and NICA and whatnot, that the two organizations seem so at odds with each other. I get that USA Cycling, as you said, is focused on Olympic athletes, but NICA, as you said in the beginning, from the beginning, has been about racing. So it seems a little strange that those two organizations can't get along better in some way.
Well, I think we are. And I think this is the beginning of it, Stephen. I know that the very first meeting I had after being hired, literally the very first meeting I had as president of NICA, I sat down with Susan, our board chair, and Rob DiMartini from USA Cycling here. I live in Colorado, here in Colorado. And over the past 18 months, I've had many in-person and phone conversations with USAC. It's just taken a very long time to get to a place that we felt comfortable as an organization, allowing them to become a sponsor of ours. And again, let's see how it goes. The thing that I've said in this is if we don't like the way it's panning out, if people are upset with it, if people have issues with it, we just end the sponsorship and move on. My hope, though, again, would be that we all ultimately are after the same thing, and that's getting more people on bikes, more people outside and active. And if we can work together, let's try. If it doesn't work out, believe me, I have no qualm ending the relationship if it's not beneficial to the student athlete.
And Steve, I'd like to kind of follow up with that, which is to sort of challenge you a little bit in getting USA Cycling to pick up the mantle of what NICA has started, but do it at the collegiate level, so that our student athletes, when they are leaving our program, they are finding a home on a collegiate level team that isn't just at big schools or anything like that. It really is just like we are, very grassroots, easy to get involved, easy to get into, but with the same level of coaching and the same level of letting student athletes find what they enjoy and not pressuring them to race, but allowing them to experience it. And hopefully that casts a wider net so that USA Cycling has that ability to identify those riders that do have Olympic potential. And I think that that would also help with their outreach in the DEI space as well, that they would be casting such a wide net with a program of that sort that would pick up where we leave off.
Yeah, I'm fully in agreement with you. And actually, what's also interesting is that's last year. That's one of the things that Rob DiMartini came to me with. He asked for help. He asked if NICA would be willing to pick up and work on the collegiate programs. And to be honest, at the time, I said, "Look, I'm too new. I've got a big job here at NICA. I need to fully understand what our needs are first and foremost. Maybe I'll talk to you in the future about it." And then, of course, the pandemic hit, and all of us kind of went south. I knew USA Cycling laid off 40% of their staff. Most recently, Liz Kohler, who was the head of their collegiate program, left just last month to take a position at USA Triathlon. And I don't know if they have filled her position yet or not. I think that's one of the hopes for them actually is to ultimately create a really good and more widespread collegiate program. I think you've seen some of their outreach that they've made with scholarship funding for BIPOC colleges and student athletes at the collegiate level. I don't know, to be honest, I'm not intimately familiar with all the collegiate programming that they do. I do know that Chris Molesky, who is the Missouri league director, spent 7 years at Linwood as the collegiate coach for cycling there. And he may have a lot better insight for you than I do, Sean, in terms of how all that works. But right now, my feeling is that NICA itself, we have enough of our own work to do. I don't feel that I have the capacity to actually engage in the collegiate program. I don't think that's what you were implying.
No.
But I just want to be real clear that I don't feel that we have that. Now, if we could support USA Cycling, if there's some way to help them do this, I'm more than willing. But at this point, apart from one conversation over a year ago, I haven't heard anything from them about it.
No, I feel like our mission is clear, and we don't want to see mission creep. But I feel that rather than um, USA Cycling gets a lot of benefit from what we're doing, in that there are massive numbers of juniors now at the races in mountain biking because of a direct result of what we're doing. So I would like to see them pick up that enthusiasm and carry it forward. I would see that as the challenge that we should be placing on them as they reap the benefits of what it is that we're doing.
And we've seen some change in North Carolina as far as how our local promoters have been trying to adapt to NICA and try to provide things that make more sense for juniors. I mean, I've been involved in youth cycling in North Carolina since about 2012. I pretty much was one of the key drivers of developing youth cycling and mountain biking racing in particular for kids in North Carolina. So I've got a pretty good hang on the history of USA Cycling and how they perceived it and things they've done and not done. Really, right now, the whole thing with USA Cycling is historically they've not had a really good history of engaging kids. We have, but there's definitely some parallels in there and things that make sense, right? So really, right now, this is just I view this as us becoming, because we do a better job of engaging and keeping kids. This makes us a natural gateway to the rest of cycling, where they can see what other ways can I have fun on a bike? Well, there's triathlon, there's BMX, there's this, there's that, there's the other, which is great. It's kind of the whole N+1 bikes, right? You start mountain biking and then you discover all the other ways you can have fun doing it. So it's really the component here is USA Cycling. What they do really, really well is developing high performance and talent, right? It's not really our focus, but we've got kids that honestly you've seen these kids at races, they have high performance. They are very focused in doing this. This just provides a path and to keep going with this, which is a positive.
All right. With that being said, Steve, thank you very much for taking time out to join us tonight. And I appreciate you answering all of our questions and sharing all these different things with our coaches. Thank you very much.
Of course, Sean. And I look forward to hearing from you at any time. Anybody that has something, I may not get back to you immediately, but please don't ever hesitate. Reach out if you have a question or need something.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. All right, we're going to move forward and hope that you all have listened to the podcast. We had a great roundtable segment with 4 coaches of varying experience levels throughout the league, from someone who started with us the very first season, one of those Trailblazer teams with Matt Hartman, all the way to a brand new first year, first time coach, first time head coach with Annie Ramsbotham at Henderson Hellbenders. They had great insight, great experience, and shared a lot. So please take time to listen to their segment and listen to all the things that they had to share. Great ideas. I can't speak highly enough of how impressed and how awesome it is to be talking to those coaches. They really do have a lot to share. Also, we introduced a new segment on the podcast, which is a trail corner. And we really want you all to think about a local trail that you are very familiar with, that is one that you use with your team a lot, or that is one of those like goal trails that you have with your team that you take them to maybe once or twice a year. But we want you to kind of give us that information so that we can direct other teams to that trail. And we started this off with me going first with a trail that we have here in Wilson's Creek called Lower Wilson Ridge Trail. And here is the link to the map on Trail Forks. and we I go through and describe the area, describe the trail, kind of give what we do whenever we go and ride it. That way you get a sense of what's going on. But you can also reach out to that particular coach, in this case it's me, and get more information if you are interested in bringing your team, whether it's for a day trip or a weekend kind of event. But be thinking about trails that you want to share with others, and be sure to drop myself and Michael an email about that so that we can get all the details that we need from you, and be able to share that information to everybody. And then last but not least, we talked about, or I talked about, Michael didn't. We didn't have a sponsor highlight or a coach's discount highlight for the podcast, but I did want to share with everybody a board game it's mountain biking. It's a mountain bike board game called Send It, which you may or may not have heard about. It's from some mountain bike racing YouTubers named Sid and Mackie, and it really, to me, fits well with what we do with NICA, which is about preparation and risk management and knowing what you're at, where you're at, and training, and it really captures all of that in a board game in a really unique and engaging way. And it also has the negative consequences. You do crash, and you do suffer the time off from having to recover from crashes. When we were doing it, my son ended up breaking his collarbone going over the last jump before the claiming the golden burrito, which is the ultimate prize, and he had to sit out for like 5 turns because he was healing up from his broken collarbone. So it was really great, and I encourage you to check it out. It was a Kickstarter, so I got it as a Kickstarter backer, but they did bring in some extra games, and I've got the link there for you if you're interested in purchasing it. I'm going to be reaching out to them, but because they did develop a just all paper version that you could print out, and I'm going to see if we could kind of distribute that out to our teams so that this would be a great rainy day activity, or something that you did like via Zoom, or however you want to apply it, but you could do with your team, and kind of engage them in a way that wasn't on the bike. All right. We've got a couple of additional things. We've got some information there about the NICA scholarships. So the Trek NICA Pathfinders Scholarship is not open to spring leagues yet. It will possibly be available to us next season, but they started it with a launch with the fall leagues this year. And the other is the Sparkle On Scholarship that Steve was mentioning from Kate Courtney, which is open right now. The applications are open until March 31st, and that is for graduating seniors who intend on moving forward to college and continuing on with bike racing. And like you said, it's $10,000. That's a significant amount of money to be awarded as a scholarship these days, especially for this tie-in with mountain biking. So definitely encourage you to do that. And also, we're having those regional grit events. We just had one in Raleigh, and or actually, I think it was closer to Cary, but that general area. But there is information that's been sent to all the team directors and head coaches, as well as licensed female coaches and registered student athletes for each region. But encourage anyone that might be interested to get those registrations in as quickly as possible. And I see that Mike Long has his hand raised. Mike.
So coaches, if you have seniors, and this is going to go hand in glove with the Sparkle On Scholarship, if you have seniors and they're looking to go to college and they're looking to race their bike at college, please let me know. I get contacted by schools and they say, hey, we're looking to recruit kids for our college. And like, what seniors can you send me to? I'm like, I don't know. I have no way of knowing your kids' post high school plans, right? So I would ask that if you, and now is the time. Actually, February was the time. I would ask that all of you talk to your seniors. Hey, have you thought about what you're doing after high school? Do you want to ride your bike? We have an instant message from a college right now on our Facebook page where a coach is asking, do we know of any kids who'd be interested in going to their school? If you know that, I would ask that and try and put it on your calendar every year. Ask your seniors, hey, what are you thinking about doing? You know, do you want to race your bike? And let us know, because if we don't know, we can't connect people. And I would love to connect these coaches with kids who want to race their bike. Maybe it's the right school for them. Maybe it's not. Typically, these schools are, typically they're smaller liberal arts schools. I mean, you've got, someone asked some names of schools that do recruit. Lees McRae is a big one in North Carolina. Brevard is a big one in North Carolina. Union recruits a lot. For those of you kids that are arts minded, my daughter just went through this. Savannah College of Art and Design has a team at their Atlanta campus and their Savannah campus. So they actually have a pretty strong team there. You've got schools out west. Fort Lewis College is probably the biggest name in that one. So there's a fair number of schools. Now, the schools that we don't hear from, now these are all varsity programs. A lot of your schools like Appalachian State, that's a club. You know, Clemson is a club. It's not a team that there's actual scholarship money for. So typically the schools that have scholarships and have official teams as part of their organization, all usually private liberal arts schools, you know, but those are a few. So if you guys could do that and let me know, let Michael know, let Sean know, I would love to get a good feel for it. And I see, yeah, Robert says that Piedmont College in Georgia has reached out to a few people. So again, we've got kids. Kids are growing up. My daughter's right now in the process of, she's about to be heading off to school. Near and dear to my heart. If you guys know, we can be a part of helping that kid find their collegiate home.
And just to chime in real quick, in seasons past, you know, some of you have been around will remember, we do invite colleges that reach out when we're having live events to come to our races. So that way they can be there and they can talk to families and kind of share their opportunities. Without us having live events, it's obviously impossible to provide that for them. But that's kind of how we try to connect as best our community with the colleges that are reaching out and asking to, you know, share their opportunities with the student athletes. But as Mike said, at any point, you know, share those people with us, because again, we don't want to be giving out personal information to anyone, you know, involved with our community outwards. And so that's how we've been working so far.
And one thing I would say is I see we're getting a lot of questions about different schools that recruit and things like that. We don't have any sort of master list of any of that stuff. It would definitely be something for the student if they've picked a school and they just want to see if there's a team there, they can definitely reach out and see if there's one there. I believe USA Cycling might have some way of finding collegiate programs on their website. But other than that, we don't have any sort of master list. One thing that I've noticed with my team Instagram account is that we do have these different small colleges following our team Instagram as a way of kind of keeping tabs on our student athletes. So if you put it out there in a NICA kind of affiliated way, those teams that are recruiting are going to find those student athletes through you and contact you. One thing that I would caution is don't get anybody's hopes up about how much scholarship money there is from these teams that are recruiting for cycling, especially these bigger universities, because that NCAA money gets gone very quickly before it gets down to a cycling team. It's the very few schools that really have these huge cycling programs that get lots of scholarship money. The other thing, I'm going to let slide, Mike, your complete butchering of Appalachian State. That was awful. And really, let's just, from this point forward, let's just say App State, and we'll call it good.
Well, you live near Booney, right?
Well, oh dear goodness,
dude, if you open a door, I'm gonna barge through it. So Yeah, I mean,
As long as there's not any Michigan fans here, we'll be all okay.
Well, I did marry someone from Michigan. So really, Steve Matous, helpfully a helpful guy that he is, listed the college conferences, and having just been through this with my daughter, a few things I'll give you. It's not to derail it too much. So if you want to find out if a school has a team, you literally have to go to each conference, go to each conference's individual website and look. And if they have a list of teams, look through the list of teams and hope they're still active. Because most of those teams are actually run by the students. Now, some of them are actual varsity programs. And again, what the biggest damage ever done to youth sports is thinking that your kid who's pretty good at playing ball is going to get a full ride scholarship. And that's doubly so for cycling, if not more, right? Case in point, my daughter had an opportunity to race for Savannah College of Art and Design, Atlanta campus. There was not a specific scholarship on top, but when her whole scholarship package was issued, and then after talking to the coach, it was reissued, it was only like $3,500 more. So please don't think you're getting a full ride anywhere. So if you're looking to cycle, there's not a good methodology to figure out who has a team where. You really have to, as a student who's interested, and as a parent who's facilitating that interest, you got to do your research and search. The best place, USA Cycling Collegiate website for the conferences, and look in the areas where your kid wants to go to school. And someone mentioned University of Mississippi. I'm not sure what is. Go and look, and you'll discover that some conferences do a lot more than other conferences. Some conferences do more of one discipline than another. So that's my helpful tip for the evening.
All right. And as a wrap up, the coaches conversation email is going to go out on Thursday, 3/18. And then look for a new podcast going up the first Monday of what month are we in now? April. Yes. Or as Mike likes to say, December 105th. 2020. Anyone have anything else they would like to add or bring up?
March.
A question.
Yes.
Has anyone or any of the teams tried to have some away meets where maybe you go an hour or two and ride a trail that's not local? I guess I'm directing this towards Sean in a way, but it's time directed towards everyone, just reaching out, trying to get ideas and see if that's something that someone has tried and how that went.
That's something we definitely encourage, and that's part of what we're trying to spark with that trail corner is kind of spreading the word about different places to go, and maybe let that be a catalyst for sharing more information. But definitely I would
Hey, Sean.
Yes.
It's Mark Strutz,
Yes.
Charlie Catholic. We're about to go on our second, what we're calling destination or adventure rides. We did DuPont. Brought all, I think we had 9 riders show up, make the trek from Charlotte. And we did it all day. So we laid out a plan in the morning. We all had lunch together, and then we hit a couple trails in the afternoon. And it was really great. The kids really liked it. We got a pretty good turnout, even though it was far to drive. But it was just on our own. We didn't do a mini meet or anything like that. But we did go to a different place, and the feedback was really good. We had another planned trip, and then weather got us locked out, and then we had a COVID issue. But we're heading up to Warrior Creek this weekend for our next one. So that'd be my feedback. It went really well.
Who's coming to Warrior Creek this weekend?
Yeah, yep, we're coming to Warrior Creek.
Charlotte Catholic.
So this is Ben Harbor, Wilco Wolves. They have just opened up 3 new trails, a part of the Headwaters Loop at Warrior Creek. shoot me an email, wilcowolves@gmail.com, where you can look my coach profile up, get my very long email. But certainly glad to ride with you. If you want to kind of coordinate or anything, just reach out and let me know.
Oh, that'd be great. Thanks a lot. Will do.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
And maybe Ben, let's go ahead and put you down for putting together some information for the Headwaters Loop for the next
I will.
podcast. All right, awesome. Love how you volunteered that.
Voluntold?
Yeah, I can do that to you. I feel comfortable. Yeah, I mean, definitely reach out to coaches in an area. Couple of things like ask for EAPs. That's going to be a great benefit. And whenever you come west, whenever you're in Western North Carolina, you can pretty much count on you need to have your wilderness first aid. It's not going to be enough just to have first aid. And that's because most of the places that we ride are well outside of 1 hour to definitive care. And that's definitely something that you want to be aware of. All right. Thank you so much, everyone.
As a prelude to the next month's podcast on Trail Talk, the new trails at Warrior Creek are not as easily accessible as the existing Warrior Creek Trail to the campground. So if we have someone from the visiting team with WFA, it would be highly encouraged that they travel with you. I'm certainly at WFA, took that training this spring, so I'll be glad to help out if needed.
Thanks a lot for that. I believe my WFA is good through the end of March, and so we should be okay, but I need to check on that.
Ride fast.
And so just for those that are wondering, WFA is Wilderness First Aid. My apologies. Being a seasoned veteran school teacher, I can speak acronym like Todd Lester. EAP is an emergency action plan. Yeah. So EAPs are all kinds of acronyms. Yeah, EAPs are emergency action plans, and that's basically sort of like here's who to call, here's how to get out, various points of the trail, here's where you would be best able to access getting a person out and to pass them off to an emergency first responder, that sort of thing. But yeah, that's all the information that would be in an EAP. And also reach out to coaches in an area just so that they can give you kind of, and I'm going to use another term, the climbing term is beta. So the information about a trail, like what skills are there, what things are there to worry about, what things should you know about going into the trail, that sort of thing. Like, are all the jumps gaps, that kind of thing.
Or are the parking lots big enough for more than 3 vehicles?
Yes. Yes, definitely. Is there water along the way? Are there bathrooms? All that good stuff.
When you fall in a river, yes, there's water.
Right on. All right. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for switching over to Zoom. And look forward to talking to everyone again next month. And as always, if you have any questions, concerns, or just need some info or want to ask a question or just need to talk, you can email Sean, SHAWN, at northcarolinamtb.org, or Michael, and that's MICHAEL. Yeah, that's how you spell Michael, at northcarolinamtb.org. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all. Take care now.
Thanks, Steve.